What happens when one of the most famous women in the world walks onto a morning show set and turns a simple interview into an absolute disaster? It only took one comment about her past for everything to explode into the most shocking television moment of the year. The studio lights were bright that morning. The cameras were rolling. Savannah Guthrie sat in her chair with her notes ready and her smile warm. She had done thousands of interviews before. She knew how to make guests feel comfortable. She knew how to ask the right questions. But nothing could have prepared her for what was about to unfold. Meghan walked onto the set wearing a designer outfit that probably cost more than most people make in a month. Her heels clicked against the floor. Her expression was cold. There was no warmth in her eyes, no friendly greeting, just a look that said she was already annoyed before anything had even started. Savannah stood up to greet her. She extended her hand like she always did. Professional, polite, kind. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Meghan barely touched her hand. The handshake lasted maybe half a second. She sat down without saying thank you, without smiling. The crew members looked at each other. This was already feeling off. Savannah tried to break the ice. She always did this with guests who seemed nervous or uncomfortable. How are you doing today? Can we get you anything? Water? Coffee? Meghan waved her hand dismissively. I'm fine. Can we just get started? I have other places to be. The first red flag. But Savannah was a professional. She had dealt with difficult guests before. She smiled and nodded. Of course. Let's dive right in. She looked down at her notes. She had prepared thoughtful questions. Questions about charity work. Questions about new projects. Nothing too personal. Nothing too invasive. Just the kind of conversation that morning show viewers loved. So, Savannah began, her voice warm and engaging. You've been involved in some really wonderful charitable initiatives lately. Can you tell our viewers about the work you've been doing? Meghan sighed. Actually sighed. On live television. Do we have to start with that? Everyone always wants to talk about charity work. It's so predictable. Savannah's smile faltered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. Well, I think our viewers would love to hear about the positive impact you're making, but we can talk about whatever you're comfortable with. What would you like to discuss? I don't know, Savannah. Maybe something that actually matters? Something real? The tension in the studio was thick now. The camera operators were glancing at each other. The producers in the control room were leaning forward in their chairs. This was not going according to plan. Savannah took a breath. She was still smiling, still professional. Okay, let's talk about something real then. You've been pretty quiet in the media lately. What have you been focusing on in your personal life? Meghan leaned back in her chair. She crossed her arms. You mean, what have I been doing since everyone decided to make me the villain? Since the press decided to tear me apart every single day? I don't think that's fair, Savannah said gently. We're not here to make you a villain. We're here to have a conversation. A conversation? Meghan laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was bitter, sharp. You people don't want a conversation. You want me to say something you can twist, something you can turn into a headline. Savannah's professionalism was being tested now, but she kept her composure. I can assure you that's not what this is about. We invited you here because we wanted to give you a platform to share your voice. Your truth. My truth? Meghan's voice was rising now. My truth is that people like you have made my life a living nightmare. Morning shows like this one pretend to be nice and friendly, but you're all just waiting for someone to slip up so you can destroy them. The audience in the studio was silent, dead silent. You could hear people breathing. Savannah's smile was completely gone now. She was still trying to remain calm, but you could see the frustration starting to show. Meghan, I think you're being unfair. I've been nothing but respectful to you since you walked in here. Respectful? Meghan shot back. You started this interview by asking me about charity work, like I'm some kind of trained SEAL performing for an audience. You don't care about me. You care about ratings. Savannah set her notes down. She looked directly at Meghan. Her voice was steady but firm. I care about having a meaningful conversation, but that requires both of us to participate in good faith. I've asked you what you want to talk about. I've tried to make you comfortable, but you came in here with an attitude from the very beginning. An attitude? Meghan's eyes widened. Are you seriously telling me I have an attitude right now? I'm saying that you've been dismissive and hostile since the moment you sat down, and I'm trying to understand why. Meghan stood up halfway, not quite leaving, but not quite staying either. Maybe because I'm tired of being treated like a circus act. Maybe because I'm tired of people like you pretending to care when all you want is a soundbite. Savannah remained seated. She kept her voice level. If that's how you feel, then I'm sorry you see it that way. But I have to tell you, Meghan, you're the one making this difficult. Not me. Not our show. You. That did it. That was the moment everything exploded. Meghan stood up completely now. Her face was red. Her hands were shaking. How dare you? How dare you sit there and blame me for this? You have no idea what I've been through. No idea what it's like to be judged every single day by people who don't know anything about me. You're right, Savannah said, her voice still calm. I don't know what that's like. But I do know what it's like to try to do my job professionally, and I do know what it's like to treat people with respect, even when they're not giving me the same courtesy. Respect? Meghan was practically shouting now. You want to talk about respect? You invited me here to ambush me, to make me look bad on national television. Nobody ambushed you. You ambushed yourself. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the crew members stopped moving. Everyone was frozen, waiting to see what would happen next. Meghan's voice dropped to something cold and venomous. You know what, Savannah? You're just like all the rest of them. You smile and pretend to be America's sweetheart, but underneath it all, you're just another person who gets paid to tear people down. Savannah stood up now, too. She was done trying to be diplomatic. That's completely out of line. I have been nothing but professional with you. I welcomed you here. I offered you a platform. And you've done nothing but attack me and our show since you arrived. Because you don't deserve anything else, Meghan snapped. You and every other morning show host who makes millions of dollars asking stupid questions and pretending to care about people's lives. Then why did you agree to come here? Savannah's voice was louder now, not shouting, but firm, strong. If you hate morning shows so much, if you think we're all so terrible, why did you accept our invitation? Meghan didn't have an answer for that. She just stood there, her chest heaving, her eyes blazing. I'll tell you why, Savannah continued. Because you wanted attention. You wanted a platform. You wanted to be on television. But now that you're here, you're realizing that being a guest means actually having a conversation. It means being civil. And apparently, that's too much to ask. You have no right to speak to me that way, Meghan said, her voice shaking. And you have no right to come onto my show and disrespect me, my crew, and our audience. Savannah fired back. We gave you an opportunity here. And you've wasted it. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. Her hands were trembling. I'm leaving. I think that's a good idea, Savannah said. But Meghan wasn't done yet. She turned back around, her eyes filled with anger. You know what your problem is, Savannah? You think you're better than everyone else. You think because you sit in that chair every morning and read off a teleprompter that you're somehow important. But you're not. You're just another puppet doing what you're told. Savannah didn't flinch. She stood her ground. And you know what your problem is, Meghan? You can't handle the fact that the world doesn't revolve around you. You came here expecting everyone to bow down and treat you like royalty. But that's not how this works. You want respect? You have to give it first. I don't have to give you anything, Meghan spat. Then leave. Savannah said simply, the door is right there. For a moment, it looked like Meghan might actually take another swing verbally. Her mouth opened, her finger pointed, but then she seemed to think better of it. She turned on her heel and started walking toward the exit, but she couldn't help herself. She had to have the last word. She stopped at the edge of the set and turned around one more time. You're going to regret this, Savannah. Everyone is going to hear about how you treated me, how you attacked me on live television. Savannah crossed her arms. She looked completely unbothered. The cameras caught everything, Meghan. Everyone saw exactly what happened here, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Meghan's face went even redder. She opened her mouth to say something else, but one of the producers stepped in. A woman in a headset walked quickly onto the set and gently touched Meghan's arm. I think it's time to go, the producer said quietly but firmly. Meghan yanked her arm away. Don't touch me. Ma'am, please, the producer said. We need to clear the set. Meghan looked around at all the cameras, all the crew members, all the people watching her fall apart on live television, and something in her face changed. Maybe she realized how bad this looked. Maybe she realized she had gone too far, but it was too late now. She turned and walked off the set without another word. Her heels clicked against the floor. The door slammed behind her, and then she was gone. Savannah stood there for a moment, taking a deep breath. The studio was still silent. Nobody knew what to say. Nobody knew what to do. This had never happened before. Not like this. Finally, Savannah turned back to the camera. Her face was composed now, professional again. She smoothed down her blazer and sat back down in her chair. "Well," she said, her voice remarkably steady, "that was certainly unexpected." The crew let out a collective exhale. Some people even laughed nervously. The tension was breaking. Savannah looked directly into the camera. She spoke to the viewers at home like she was talking to friends. "I want to apologize to everyone watching. That's not the kind of interview we planned. That's not the kind of conversation we wanted to have. We invited our guest here in good faith, hoping to have a meaningful discussion. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned." She paused. She looked down at her notes, then back up at the camera. "But I also want to say this. We will always treat our guests with respect on this show. We will always try to create a space for honest, open conversation. But respect has to go both ways. And when someone comes onto our show and treats our team, our audience, and me with hostility and disrespect, we're not going to pretend that's okay." The camera operators were zooming in now, capturing every word, every expression. "We're going to take a quick break," Savannah said. "When we come back, we'll continue with the rest of our show. Thank you for understanding." The red lights on the cameras went off. The studio erupted into chatter. Producers were running around. Assistants were on their phones. Everyone was talking at once. But Savannah just sat there, calm, collected. She had handled an impossible situation with grace and strength. She hadn't backed down. She hadn't let herself be bullied. She had stood up for herself and her team. One of the producers came over to her. "That was incredible. Are you okay?" Savannah nodded. "I'm fine. It's not how I wanted things to go, but sometimes these things happen." She was completely out of line. Another crew member chimed in. "You handled that perfectly." Savannah smiled, but it was a tired smile. "Let's just get through the rest of the show." In the green room, staff members were dealing with the aftermath of Meghan's exit. She had left the building immediately, refusing to speak to anyone. Her team was scrambling, trying to figure out what to do, trying to control the damage. But back in the studio, the show had to go on. Savannah touched up her makeup during the commercial break. She reviewed her notes for the next segment. She took a sip of water and rolled her shoulders back. When the cameras came back on, she was smiling again, warm, professional, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just been verbally attacked on live television. "Welcome back," she said cheerfully. "We have a great show lined up for you today. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about some exciting new fall recipes that you can make at home." And just like that, the show continued. Because that's what professionals do. They keep going. They don't let one bad moment derail everything. But nobody watching that morning would forget what they had just witnessed. Nobody would forget the way Meghan had walked onto that set with contempt in her eyes. The way she had dismissed every attempt at kindness. The way she had lashed out at someone who was only trying to do her job. And nobody would forget the way Savannah had handled it. With dignity, with strength, with a firm but fair response that showed she wouldn't be pushed around. In the control room, the producers were already fielding calls. Other networks wanted to know what had happened. Social media was exploding. Everyone had an opinion. But Savannah wasn't thinking about any of that. She was focused on her next guest, on the next segment, on doing her job the way she always did, with professionalism, with heart, with the kind of grace under pressure that had made her one of the most respected hosts in morning television, because at the end of the day, that's what separated someone like Savannah from someone like Meghan. Savannah knew how to treat people. She knew how to handle difficult situations. She knew that respect and kindness matter, even when things get tough. And Meghan? Meghan had shown everyone exactly who she was, not through carefully crafted statements or public relations campaigns, but through her own words and actions. She had revealed herself to be someone who expected special treatment, someone who couldn't handle a simple conversation without turning it into a confrontation, someone who blamed everyone else for her problems instead of taking any responsibility herself. The cameras had captured it all, every eye roll, every dismissive gesture, every hostile word. There was no spinning this, no way to rewrite what had happened. The truth was there for everyone to see. As the show continued, Savannah interviewed a chef about autumn recipes. She laughed at the right moments. She asked engaging questions. She made her guests feel comfortable and valued, because that's what she did. That's who she was. And somewhere out there, Meghan was probably realizing that she had made a terrible mistake, that she had burned a bridge she could never rebuild, that she had shown millions of people a side of herself that no amount of damage control could fix. But that wasn't Savannah's problem. She had done her job. She had treated her guests with respect until that respect was no longer returned. And then she had stood her ground with the kind of quiet strength that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. The rest of the show went smoothly. There were cooking segments and celebrity interviews and heartwarming stories about everyday heroes. All the things that morning show audiences loved. All the things that made people want to start their day with a cup of coffee and a smile. When the show finally ended, Savannah said goodbye to the viewers and thanked them for watching. The cameras turned off. The lights dimmed. Another show was done, but this one would be remembered. Not for the recipes or the celebrity gossip or the feel-good stories, but for the moment when a host refused to be bullied, when she stood up for herself and her team, when she showed that kindness doesn't mean weakness, and professionalism doesn't mean being a doormat. Savannah gathered her notes and walked off the set. Her team surrounded her, offering support and praise. But she just smiled and thanked them, because to her, she had simply done what needed to be done. She had treated someone with respect, and when that respect wasn't returned, she had responded appropriately. That's all it was. That's all it needed to be. And as the studio emptied out and the crew packed up the equipment, one thing was clear. Savannah Guthrie had handled an impossible situation with incredible grace. She had shown why she was one of the most trusted voices in morning television. And she had proven that you don't have to sink to someone else's level to stand your ground. Meanwhile, Meghan was learning a hard lesson. That fame doesn't give you the right to treat people badly. That sitting in front of a camera means accepting that your behavior will be seen and judged. That burning bridges feels powerful in the moment, but leaves you isolated in the end. The interview that was supposed to be a simple conversation had turned into a masterclass in how not to behave. And Savannah had emerged from it with her reputation not just intact, but enhanced. Because she had shown something that can't be taught or faked. Character, integrity, the ability to remain professional even when someone is trying their hardest to make you lose your cool. That's what people would remember. Not the drama, not the conflict, but the way one person handled pressure with grace while another person crumbled under the weight of their own entitlement. The studio was quiet now. The day was moving on. Other shows were being prepared. Other interviews were being scheduled. Life in television keeps moving forward, always on to the next thing. But for those 36 seconds when everything exploded, when Meghan told Savannah she was just another puppet, and Savannah fired back, that respect has to go both ways. Television history was made. Not the kind that wins awards or gets celebrated, but the kind that reminds everyone watching that how we treat people matters. That respect is earned through our actions, not demanded through our status. That grace under pressure is one of the most powerful things a person can demonstrate. And in the end, that's exactly what Savannah demonstrated. Grace, strength, professionalism, everything that makes a great host great. Everything that separates someone who deserves their platform from someone who just expects it.